Okay, so now you have some information about, okay, I'm motivated. I want to do some changes. Thumbs up. So here is a cool video on changing behavior by Doug Lisle. I reference him in the end as far as a resource. He's excellent. His website has like 5 or 6 hours of free psychological information regarding food. It's super wonderful. But we're going to watch this pleasure trap from the Forks Over Knives movie. If any of you have seen this, this is a clip from that. So I wonder if I can. I don't know if this is going to be too small. Maybe you can give me feedback on this.
In 1973, the U.S. Congress passed a new farm subsidy bill. Among other things, it included incentives that encouraged a massive increase in corn production. One of the major byproducts of this enormous corn surplus was a low-cost sweetener called high-fructose corn syrup. Companies could add this sweetener to anything from soda pop to hot dogs, and then make these products widely available at low prices. Processed sugars and other refined foods are far more calorie dense than the whole plants they're made from. The dramatic increase in their use is a major reason why our food has become richer. To evolutionary psychologist and author Dr. Doug Lisle, the consumption of unnaturally dense foods is the main cause for the epidemic of obesity in America.
It isn't that people become more self-indulgent. It isn't because they're lazier than they ever were. What's happening is that their mechanisms of satiation are being fooled.
The process starts with a range of receptors in our stomachs that help us gauge how much food we've eaten. These include stretch receptors to help measure the sheer volume of food in our stomachs. We also have density receptors to help determine the caloric density, or what we more commonly call the richness of our food. For instance, 500 calories of natural plant food fills the stomach completely, triggering both our stretch and density receptors to signal our brain that we've had enough to eat. But 500 calories of unnaturally rich or processed food fills the stomach far less, deceiving these receptors into telling our brain that we need to eat more. Even worse is 500 calories of oil, which is almost pure fat and barely triggers any response at all.
The problem with weight management in humans is that if you make these foods completely artificial, which we do today, you wind up with a problem that people have to overeat just to be satisfied.
But why do these concentrated foods that are so harmful to us give us so much pleasure? Dr. Lisle says the answer is related to a system called the motivational triad. This is a trio of biological mechanisms that nature has designed into every creature on Earth, so they can survive to pass their genes on to the next generation. The first leg of the motivational triad is pleasure seeking.
And primarily 2 things are the cause of that. And those 2 things are food and sex. So in the case of a great white shark, it's basically got a neon sign flashing across its forehead saying food, sex, food, sex, food, sex. Unless it's a male, then it says sex, food, sex, food. It's pretty much the same thing.
The other 2 legs of the motivational triad are avoiding pain and doing everything with the least amount of effort.
Pleasure seeking, pain avoidance, and energy conservation. That really sums up animal behavior, whether we're talking about a paramecium under a microscope or a great white shark.
Richer foods naturally excite our senses because it's nature's way of telling us they will provide the highest amount of dietary reward with the least amount of effort. This helped our ancestors find the most calorie-dense and ripe foods available, which contributed to our survival. But in today's environment, we can artificially increase calorie density well beyond what our ancestors would have found in nature. The resulting foods give us a hypernormal amount of pleasure, leading us into something Dr. Lisle calls the pleasure trap.
What the pleasure trap is an interaction between our natural instincts, which are trying to tell us the right thing to do, and some kind of artificial modern stimulation that is piggybacking or hijacking that process. So the classic example of the pleasure trap would be drugs and drug addiction. The way drugs work is they hijack the existing pleasure circuits. When certain chemicals hit those areas, they cause feelings of euphoria and excitement.
The same drug-like effect happens when we eat highly concentrated, processed foods.
We've removed the fiber, we've removed the water, we've removed the minerals. We've done everything that we can to hyper-concentrate sugar and fat and add a bunch of salt as well into the food. And now what the food has become is become a low-grade addiction.
Okay, so that's showing you the stomachs example. Whoops. All right. So here, what I want to point out is Doug Lyle and Goldhammer, Alan Goldhammer, they came up with this dietary pleasure trap. So let's just say, hey, you're motivated. Hey, I want to eat less candy. I'm going to eat more vegetables. And what's going to happen is you're not going to like the changes in that you might do in your diet for about 3 weeks. It takes 3 weeks for our tongue to adjust to lower levels of sugar, salt, and fat. Sugar, salt, and fat are the 3 main ingredients that the food industry is using to hook us, to get us to keep eating in an unhealthy way. All right. So here it's showing you that normal, enhanced, and subnormals. Here we have normal pleasure zone. So this is just normal food, kind of like from 1900, not jazzed up with a bunch of sugar, salt, and fat. But then we get food that's jazzed up with sugar, salt, and fat. And now we're in the enhanced pleasure zone, enhanced pleasure zone. And what happens, we keep repeating that every day. Coffee with creamer and sugar in it, cheesy things, fatty things, salty things. I just heard a news release about 3 days ago is that people, because they're eating more at home, they're eating far less salty food. So if they went back to a restaurant, they probably wouldn't like the food anymore. And it's true. It's true. So what happens is you're motivated to change how you're eating and you start to change it. And what happens, you're going to do a free fall. And this is, by the way, weeks. Week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. All right. So this is you just living and then changing. Free fall. Oops, I clicked it. Dang it. Uh-oh, what did I do now? Free fall, free fall, free fall. You free fall all the way through the normal zone, still doesn't taste good. You go to the sub-pleasure, normal pleasure zone, doesn't taste good. You're kind of basically saying, who's in the kitchen? They're doing something wrong. And what happens is you're eating wholesomely all through this time, wholesome, and we're going to learn what that is this semester. And what happens is you pop back up into the normal pleasure zone at the end of the 3rd week, into the 4th week. And that means that you start to taste some flavors in the foods that you never tasted before because your tongue was coated with sugar, salt, and fat, and it's no longer coated that way. So be patient, but that's pretty quick. It's called neuroadaptation. They have a fancy word for it. Our neurology, our nervous system, our taste buds, part of that, adapt. And they adapt to wanting it and they adapt to not wanting it. Okay, so chronic disease. So I kind of shared it a little bit earlier, but I'm gonna keep sharing it because it's a huge game changer. I worked in the hospital from 09 to 014, and I used to get in trouble for telling people that they could reverse their heart disease, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, all right? Nurses would get mad at me, like, you don't have a right to say that. But I do, and other professionals have a right to say it, and it's good that it's becoming common knowledge. Every semester I ask people how many people know this, so I'm going to ask you how many of you know this, that some chronic diseases are reversible through nutrition, but it's about implementing the information that we've been talking about to be successful at that. So here are the diseases. Heart disease is reversible, cancers, breast cancer, colon cancers, are the 2 that come to mind, a few others, strokes, type 2 diabetes, hypertension. So Dr. Esselstyn, he's one of the people I refer to also in the references or resources, is that there's some very wonderful leaders in the field of whole food plant-based nutrition, and Esselstyn is one of them. And he talks about, we have a cardiovascular system through our whole body, right? And then when we have issues in the cardiovascular system, we'll call it different things. Like if I have an issue in the cardiovascular system of my heart, we call it a heart attack. If I have an issue in the cardiovascular system in my brain, we call it a stroke. And believe it or not, when men have a cardiovascular issue with their erectile penis, they'll call it erectile dysfunction. Now, some people have that because of other reasons, but it is also a vascular issue. and you improve your vascular system through nutrition, it improves all those conditions. So that's why you see heart disease and strokes are up here, because we're one being. We're not separated blocks of ourselves. So hopefully you see this list and it's reassuring to you. Perhaps you have loved ones that have had some of these medical conditions and you're thinking in your mind, oh my God, I'm sad they had that. Maybe they've passed or maybe they're ill because of that. And you're scared that you might get it. And I want to tell you, if you start to change how you're eating, it can change the expression of that. Lots of people think, hey, it's lifestyle, or I'm sorry, it's genetics, it's genetics. No, 96 bell-shaped curve, 96% of people with heart disease, strokes, type 2 diabetes, hypertension, it's related to lifestyle. So you're repeating the lifestyle of your parents or your grandparents. That's what's repeating. Genes are not repeating. Type 2 diabetes is 100% lifestyle. That is 100% lifestyle condition. It is not a genetic condition. Okay, let's see. Dental disease, adult bone loss, not so much reversible. All right, so we're going to stop with this. Oh goodness, where is my back? Where's my mouse? Why can't I find my mouse? Oh, there we are. Okay, so we're going to stop.